Sandra Augustus of the Child Development Division right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as attorney out of New York City, Juanita Headley, working in the field of human trafficking and child abuse cases. She's also an author of the book Can You Keep a Secret? She's also an international speaker and the CEO at the NGO, a non-government organization called Changing Cases. Quite interesting. So this morning we're going to be talking about, highlighting some child abuse awareness. I mean, that time of the year is coming up. So we're going to be highlighting some of the issues. We will begin the discussion here this morning. I mean, it will continue in weeks to come. And we'll be touching a little bit as well on human trafficking as well. All right. So let's go. I guess we can begin with Miss Augustus. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not getting you. If you can. Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, fugitive.
Okay. Let me take let me just put a pin on it. Hold on. Just give me a minute, please. Okay, so good morning to Bella, and not even sure who that one is. Jimmy's still on the inside there. Morning, brethren. Jelani checking inside. What's good? Morning. Okay, so I needed to let you know this in the meantime, but we're gonna switch it up for a little bit. And we're gonna delve right into our discussion on human trafficking. All right, that portion of the discussion will be shared by attorney Juanita Headley. I gotta let you know as well that this program is being brought to you with the kind compliments of the Child Development Division within the Ministry of National Mobilization in collaboration with UNICEF and funded by USAID. All right, so Juanita Headley, welcome to the studios of Xtreme Radio. I didn't get a chance to say it before. Welcome to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you so much for having me, Fugitive. I'm honored to be here today.
Okay, lovely. And it's a pleasure having you. It's always a great opportunity to learn new stuff. I mean, we've been hearing over and over for years now about the issue of human trafficking. I think human trafficking. All right. What does this mean? What does it entail? Human trafficking.
Most certainly. With regards to human trafficking, the legal definition is the recruiting, transporting, transferring, harboring, or receipt of persons with the use of force, fraud, or coercion, and by using an individual, a girl, a boy, man, or woman, for the purposes of sexual services, and in return for those sexual services, the individual benefits whether financially or in kind. Mm-hmm. Now, the legal definition often confuses people, so I don't use that definition.
Right.
I simply use the term exploitation, which is exactly what it is. What people have to understand, human trafficking does not require movement. When you think about the movie Taken, that is not the reality every single time. Because
Okay.
when I was featured in the Searchlight newspaper 2 weeks ago, there were people saying it's fake news. Are the traffickers swimming outside of the islands? Are they swimming to Grenada, etc.? It doesn't work like that. If you pay attention with the definition, recruiting, transporting,
Right.
it's or. It's not, it has to be recruiting and transporting. And what we have to appreciate right here in Simonson and the Grenadines, we have an issue of human trafficking right under our
We
noses,
do.
and not just in Myro or in Union Island. It is happening right here
On
in
mainland.
mainland. Because what people don't realize is when you allow your sugar daddy, boyfriend, or partner to have sex with your daughter or son so that you can pay the utility bills, have groceries or money, that is trafficking. That is
Oh.
trafficking. And there was no
Wow.
movement involved because that child's pimp is the mother who allows the boyfriend or sugar daddy to come to the house, to come to the bedroom. When that child is a minor, that is trafficking.
Now, that brings a totally different reality to what it means. And I'm happy that you shared that. So now we have a way better understanding of it. Because, yes, I am one of those who thought, human trafficking, it meant that you were being taken from one country, maybe from St. Vincent to somewhere else, where you're being pimped out, where you're being sold for sexual pleasures and so on. But it goes way beyond that.
100%.
It goes way beyond that.
And we have even girls in Union who have actually been sold in Myro or sold to yachties, which is these foreign men who come over. And again, the mother or father or stepfather or stepmother would indeed be the pimp. When you
Wow.
allow your child to have sex with a yachty, that is trafficking. That is trafficking. And we need to
Wow.
understand the reality. In fact, I know of a girl, she was 14 at the time, gets pregnant. She gives birth to a son. A number of years later, she sexually abuses her son. When he gets older, he gets his girlfriend pregnant outside of marriage. They have a daughter and separate. 12 to 13 years later, the daughter reconciles with her father, and she's so excited to be back with her dad. Her dad sexually abuses her.
Oh, my God.
I know her personally. She's in her 60s, and she told me, by her own admission, she would give herself to her father so he wouldn't sexually abuse her sisters. She then goes back to the Caribbean, where she's originally from, and spends time with the grandmother. That's the 14-year-old. The grandmother gets a lamp, inspects her private parts, but the grandmother was being sexually aroused too. The grandmother then sends the granddaughter down the road to have sex with Mr. X and to collect money. That is human trafficking. But it gets worse because the little girl is so angry at God and her father. Her father was a pastor, not a priest. She tore up the Bible, stuffed it in her underwear. The Bible got removed by her aunt and uncle who sexually abused her too. If you believe in generational curse, that's exactly how it sounds.
Wait. This is not something that some pieces that you pulled out from one of your books.
No, this is someone I know personally.
This is not a movie.
Definitely
this
not.
This is actual reality.
It is, and I know her personally.
Of Vincentian.
She's not a Vincentian. I won't say which Caribbean country she's originally from, but she is an individual who has suffered and suffered and suffered. And as I said there, her grandmother, who was a pedophile who abused her biological son, abuses the granddaughter and pimps out the granddaughter. And we're talking about over 60 years ago. This is not a recent thing. And in fact, the first human trafficking story was Joseph in the Bible. He was labor trafficked by his brothers. Human trafficking isn't new.
You know,
It's
there's
not
some
new.
who gonna argue that with you, but I mean that's not for today. But how bad is it then in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Human trafficking.
It's a problem because we have a lot of incest, and you have to think about it. When you have incest and then money is changing hands, when you have children being abused and money is changing hands, it moves over from abuse and incest into the realms of human trafficking when the child is a minor. It is not always just prostitution. We may sit there and say, oh, she's promiscuous, prostitution. It is not always like that, and that's what we have to accept. And I talk to boys and girls here who have been sexually abused. If money changed hands, that does become trafficking. And when I say boys and girls, I mean these are men I've met in your country who have been sexually violated. And if photos and videos are taken, that becomes cyber sex trafficking if that is sold on the internet.
Now, in terms of, not everyone, well, especially those without the professional training would be able to pick up that this is what is happening. Probably we can touch on some of the telltale signs. What is it do you look for? How do you pick up that this is what is actually what's happening?
Well, what I would say is when it comes to looking at victims and survivors of abuse or exploitation, if it is a small child, for example, they may have regressive behavior, sucking the thumb or wetting the bed. And in addition to that, I want to also bring in sexualized behavior, because when we see little children pull down their skirt or their pants, some of us find that funny. I have never found that funny. The question I have mentally is, who else are they entertaining? Because for the majority of small kids, we were taught how to dress and undress in private. What about when you have a child, a minor, who is masturbating at 3? Where are they learning this from? At the end of the day, we can't say exposure to porn, because 10, 20 years ago, we didn't have the access to the internet like we do today. And not every child is being exposed to porn. So we've got to ask ourselves that question. With older children, maybe they have low self-esteem, insomnia, eating disorder. When you see these things in a person, ask yourself mentally why. I know of girls who all have sleep issues, who were all sexually abused during their sleep. But we often quick fix, chamomile tea, Horlicks, Milo. No, don't do that. Ask yourself why. I know somebody who was sexually abused from 4 to 10 by their mother's first husband. That child has suffered with insomnia even up into adulthood. Anger issues is another one. What about a person who is obese? Not every obese person was abused, but when you've been abused, you lose control, so you eat to control. STDs, HIV, AIDS, unintended pregnancy. When a girl is pregnant, we may judge her, but for all you know, that baby is born as a result of rape. Not every child walking around was born out of a consensual, loving sexual interaction. So we've got to appreciate that. What about somebody dressing differently, hanging out with a new crowd? Somebody who's uncomfortable getting undressed in front of you, you're the same gender. You're both girls, you're both guys, and there's the uncomfortability. What about somebody who's promiscuous, who sleeps around, who's always walking around with very less clothing on? What about a person who is, for example, transgender, a prostitute, homosexual? Sometimes I know people who have been victimized time and time and time again, and as a result of that, they decide, you know what? Let me work in a Sexpresso cafe and empower myself. A Sexpresso cafe is where you perform sex acts publicly. It exists in Switzerland. It's coming to England. Other people say, I'm going to work in a strip club. I'm going to work in a massage parlor and give extras. When we see that, we judge it without realizing that because of the abuse a person has been through, the exploitation, that is why they behave the way that they do.
No.
And when I made reference to that 4-year-old who was abused systematically until they were 10 sexually, and that child suffers with insomnia up into adulthood, that child is me. I was sexually abused from the ages of 4 to 10 by my mother's first husband. I didn't sleep last night. I didn't sleep the night before. Anger issues, low self-esteem. Even though this happened years ago, it still affects me today. And a victim of abuse, a victim of sexual trafficking will suffer with the similar signs and identifiers because of the trauma that we have been through, regardless of the age that we're at. And that is important to note.
That now it's getting even more intense as we go along. Now, I asked about the telltale signs. Now, you know, most of the times when you pick up on these things, it's like the process has already begun. It's already started. Is there any real way to prevent these things from happening?
Most definitely, and I think it starts with education. Earlier on, you used the term awareness, and a lot of people talk about that. Back in August, the 14th to be exact, of last year, I quit my job. A few days later, I flew to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Flight got cancelled. I'm still here. I did not quit my paying job in the UK doing human trafficking prevention work to raise awareness. A lot of times around the world, we know about things going on in the neighborhood. We know about things going on across the road. We are aware. Awareness in my mind is knowing and doing nothing. I hear stories all the time. Oh, yes, I know about the neighbor. I know about this person. But what are you doing to protect? We often place the responsibility on the victim, on the child, on the survivor. Let us not be raising awareness. Let us do more. I quit my job to educate and empower people on this topic. When you can understand the signs and identifiers, you can better safeguard and protect your children. Because when I meet victims and survivors in their 30s, 40s, 50s, the abuse wasn't one time. There are men in your country that I know of personally, professional men, I can't name them, professional men who were sexually abused multiple times in their childhood, and their parents are clueless. I can guarantee that up to today, the parents have no idea. And I say that because if I was to ever meet them, they probably wouldn't take the messages serious without realizing how close to home it is. Knowledge is power. The Bible says people perish for lack of knowledge. We need to be educated. When your child is 10 and he's a boy addicted to porn and masturbation, talk to him. Don't beat it out of him. When your child is engaging sexually with another child in primary school, do not beat him or her. Get to understand when someone has
problem.
Yes, someone has sleep problems like me. Don't tell me to drink soursop leaves. Ask me why. Get to the root cause. When you can get to the root cause, you can understand. Because there's a child in your country, she's 9, and she digitally penetrates a 10-year-old student in class. Digits are your fingers. That happens in class and no one has no idea. And that 10-year-old, she reads the Macmillan book, the book that is available in schools. She reads that book and she told me she is sexually aroused by that book. Jeez. She told me she wants to lose her virginity at 15 and give birth at 16. I know of another child who was engaged in sexually with a teddy bear when she was 3. She was a victim of rape. So when you see these behaviors, try to understand and strip away beyond the surface. Don't laugh it away. Think about your kids when they're walking around naked at 2 years of age. That's not okay. Half the time kids are abused and taken advantage of. It's somebody that you know. It's not a stranger. I was abused by my stepfather. The men here, the women here who have shared their story were abused by people that they knew.
Using your own experience, Juanita, in terms of speaking out is usually one of the barriers, or probably one of the first barriers. Speaking out. How difficult was it for you to speak out? Sometimes when we hear victims speak out, the persons who have been abused, sometimes it's years after, sometimes it's decades after, and people often ask the question, why no? What is it you're about? What is it you're after? What is it you're trying to prove? No. Why no? Speaking out.
It's very difficult. Why? Because the blame is placed on the victim. It is so difficult to talk about sex when you're a 4-year-old. Why? Because your parents might use terminology like cookie, pumpkin, butterfly, banana, or cherry. I know of a student age 7 who came to school and said, "Daddy is licking my cookie." That was her private parts. And the teacher said, "Tell your dad to lick his own cookie." Let's use the correct terminology. When we cannot even use the correct terminology, private parts, how can you expect a 4-year-old to articulate, "Daddy is raping me"? We don't even have the vocabulary. We are ashamed and embarrassed. It is very difficult to talk about. Even these 2 men here, one of them has told nobody besides me. The other one has only told me and his wife. It is very embarrassing. And the blame is placed on us. Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you do it? It doesn't work like that. When you are groomed, it is very hard for you to be able to step away from that situation because you have been conditioned. Grooming is a form of preparation. When we get ready for school, for work, we're preparing. Grooming is when the perpetrator, pedophile or pimp, prepares you for sex. And that is when they do nice things to you, buy you candy, alcohol pops, let you stay up late, give you special privileges. I was groomed. My stepfather was my best friend. So nobody had any idea that I was being victimized, a victim of attempted rape for 6 years of my life. And people get confused. How is it attempted rape? I didn't just lie there, guys. I fought back. That's how it's attempted rape. It's not rocket science. There are victims and survivors who fight back. There are others who, because of fear, they freeze. We cannot sit and judge one person's story on the basis of our knowledge or lack of knowledge. But I know children here who were raped and sodomized, and that breaks my heart, men and women. And they do not tell anybody but me because they're going to be judged. And when you're a boy and a woman abuses you, well, people would say, well, you liked it, you enjoyed it. Or even we have women in the Caribbean who will sit there and say that your 7-year-old son is their boyfriend. Not appropriate. This kind of talk is not okay. I know of a boy in the Caribbean. Country doesn't matter. And this lady would say, "This is my boyfriend," and she'd hug and kiss him publicly. And she was sexually abusing him privately, and nobody had any idea. Because they turned a blind eye. She did it in public. She'll hug him up and call him boyfriend, and everybody just let it go. And this woman would have the child in her room and engage sexually with him time and time again, and none of his family had any idea. And that is the reality right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Oh, jeez. Sex is still largely considered a taboo. Sad to say. In this day and age, the word sex is still considered a taboo, especially in schools. Do you see that as another problem, another hurdle?
Absolutely, because the problem is you're not going to talk about it, but they're going to do it anyway. No matter your religion, your faith, beliefs, whatever, at the end of the day, we need to have these conversations. We have magazines like Teen Vogue. In Teen Vogue, this is aimed at young people and teenagers. There are articles about performing anal sex. There are articles for girls and for boys about the best way to masturbate. We need to have these conversations. Your children are going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter what you believe in. I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in God. That is my faith. That is the motivation behind what I do. But we live in the world. The Bible says you're in the world, be in it, but not of it. That means when things are happening, don't put blinkers on. Because I'm telling you, even in church, we have girls, abortion, promiscuity. We have people fornicating left, right, and center. You go on Vinci Confessions, we have young people talking about how many different men they're having sex with and they're in church. So let's open our eyes to the reality. It's not about judging and condemning. It's about having these conversations. I've had conversations with young people. In fact, I have half siblings and I talk to them about foreplay. I talk to them about masturbation from a biblical, godly perspective. If I don't do that, they're going to do it anyway. So at least by us having that discussion, I asked my brother, do you masturbate? We had those conversations because in his church, they're all fornicating anyway. The fact of the matter is your children will do it whether you know it or not. They may put on a facade, but let's make it an opportunity for us to be in their business, to not judge, but to have these conversations. There is a girl in the US, lived and grew up in a Catholic household. And as a result of living in that household where sex wasn't talked about, she got pregnant. And guess what? She gave birth at prom and killed the baby. At the end of the day, this is a US story. She's called a prom mom. At the end of the day, if the parents had had appropriate conversations with her about sex, that probably would not have happened. She would have practiced safe sex. We may not believe or agree in sex before marriage, but they're going to do it anyway. That's the point.
Now that we have a better understanding, a wider understanding as to what it means with human trafficking, I'm certain that this discussion will definitely continue in days to come because, like I said from the beginning, we thought it was just limited to, kidnapping somebody, taking them against the will, taking them to another country, exploiting them there, selling them around for money. Now we have a wider understanding that you can be right here in St. Vincent on the mainland, right under our nose, and it's happening. Now, some people might not even be aware of the role that we can play. What role can we play in terms of assisting within the fight to stamp out human trafficking here in St. Vincent?
Well, the first thing is you need to have the knowledge. That means that you need to get to learn about this. For example, reach out to me. Go on my Facebook, join my groups. I talk about this topic every Thursday. I have a Zoom meeting. A lot of the information I've got is from talking to people, victims, survivors, from reading, from researching. We have the internet. The knowledge is available at our fingertips. You need to have the knowledge. You need to have the information. Because the fact of the matter is, there are victims and survivors of abuse and exploitation right in front of you, but you have no idea what you're looking at. Like I said to you, there are men and women alive today in mainland who are victims of abuse. And let me explain about sex trafficking in relation to virtual sex trafficking. When I say virtual, I mean over the internet. Because in the Philippines, we have cyber sex trafficking. And I actually have a dream or dreams, and one of them is to build safe houses in the Philippines. Now, when I've been to Ghana and other countries, they're like, why not Ghana? Why not Indonesia? Why the Philippines? The Philippines is number one for cyber sex trafficking. And the age of sexual consent is 12, the youngest in the world. Cyber sex trafficking in the Philippines is when we have boys and girls sexually abusing one another, mother, father, auntie, uncle, sexually abusing their children in front of a webcam for often a Western man in Australia, Korea, New Zealand, US, UK, who directs what abuse he wants to see happen live. And that is what takes place. This guy is in his home in Australia, for example. Let's say he's Scully. Scully is a pedophile from Australia, came to the Philippines and committed heinous sexual offenses against a number of children. He's now in prison. Let's assume Scully is in the USA or in Australia, where he's from, and he's there directing this footage. He's telling the mother and father what to do to their child. Scully is in Australia. The child is in the Philippines. Scully has committed a criminal offense. He may not physically be present, but he has still committed an offense of trafficking, cyber sex trafficking. That means you could be on a lockdown and still be being trafficked. Think about it. If you have a webcam you're being sexually abused by somebody in another country or in another island, let's say in Bekwai, that right there is trafficking. We don't need movement. We do not need movement. And on the back of that, when it's a minor, it does not need to be force, fraud, or coercion. Because somebody commented under the Searchlight article, and they said there was a lady who left mainland St. Vincent, went overseas to marry a guy never seen again. And someone replied, well, that's not trafficking. There was no force. Wrong. When it's an adult, it's force or fraud or coercion. Fraud or coercion, you entice somebody, you promise them a relationship. Trafficking. So we've got to understand. Because we sit here and say there's no trafficking, fake news. Miss Headley's doing a dissertation. No, I'm not. I'm trying to inform people so they can better protect, because the perpetrators are right on the inside. I've been to your Belle Isle and Kingstown prison. The only reason they're in there is because they got caught. But the vast majority of perpetrators of sexual offenses have never even been arrested, because the victim survivor didn't say anything. I meet them. They didn't say anything because it's a family member, because it's a family friend. And that is the scary reality. It's the people close to home. So it's not about being paranoid. It's about looking at the signs, talking to your children, understanding, for example, what are the signs and indicators of abuse or trafficking, so that you can discuss with your child. Why are you uncomfortable getting dressed in front of me? I'm your mother. We're both females. Why is it you're having sleep issues, Ms. Headley? Why is it that you have anger issues, Mr. X? Whatever it is, talk to people. Don't make assumptions. We like to brush things off and put a Band-Aid. Let's scratch beneath the surface and have conversations and stop judging. That's all we seem to do. Judge, judge, judge. There are single mothers that I know of personally in some of these islands, I mean, our islands here, whose child was a product of rape or incest. So let us quit judging and try to support and understand so that we can break the cycle. If we do not break the cycle, it will continue and continue. The story I told you about the 14-year-old abusing her son, abusing her granddaughter, that is not the first case of this kind, and it will not be the last. That kind of thing does happen. It happened more than 60 years ago. It's still happening today, and that's what we've got to understand.
Now, penalties. Do you think that, like, for example, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the penalties that are in place, do you see them acting or giving weight in any way to it being a deterrent?
To be honest with you, every country has different laws. And what I'm seeing here is that not much is being done. In fact, having spoken to the counter-trafficking team that they have, the one human trafficking case that they have recorded is of a person coming in, I believe, from Jamaica. But what we have to realize, as I said earlier, which the trafficking team know, it is not about movement. But the issue we have, when children are not reporting, when parents are protecting the sugar daddy or the partner, then how will we ever know? How can we ever intervene in a situation when we don't know what's happening? And that is the problem. We like to protect and safeguard the perpetrator. We like to accuse the child of lying. And that doesn't work. We have a prison, and I believe in prison, I believe in jail time. Castration will not solve the problem, nor will the death penalty. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. Some of these people are just sick. Some of these people, it could just be circumstantial, not justifying. But when you understand this issue, you realize castration will not stop men or women from abusing, meaning but you castrate the man, it will not stop him
it would
from...
probably stop one individual. But I mean, jail time, jail time, the role of jail time in all of this. I mean, if you're saying that castration won't work, but you think that jail time would, I mean, jail time, they serve the time, they back out into the community. Sometimes not rehabilitated.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? But the thing is, let's assume we castrate all these men. I believe it's in the head. Castrating them will not stop them from abusing. They'll use objects. They'll use their fingers. They will get the kids to... It could be worse for the child. They'll get the kids to abuse one another. They'll even bring animals into it. We have children who sexually abuse with animals. So the fact of the matter is we have to understand and appreciate that this isn't something where it's a quick fix. There are people who go into prison, male and female, who are pedophiles, pimps, traffickers, and come out reformed. Many don't. But like I said, the death penalty will not solve the problem, because all you're doing is getting rid of this person. Somebody takes over. There are men and women, couples who sexually abuse and traffic their own biological children. There's a couple in the US and they have a 6-month-old daughter, and they were trafficking her. It was cyber sex trafficking, making videos and selling it on the internet. Even there's a lady, her name is Misty in the US. She gives up her son when he's about 1, reconnects 16 years later. They start talking. She tells him that she doesn't think they should continue this interaction because it's not healthy. She's developing feelings. And he said, I don't care. I'm getting feelings too. They met at a motel and had sex together. That's not okay. If she took photos, videos, and sold it, then it becomes trafficking. And Misty's not the first mother because mothers do it too. I know of a boy in Tobago. He came to school and he was distressed. And the teacher asked him what's wrong. And he said his mum's having a new baby. Now, I'm an only child, so I'm thinking he's an only child too. And he's jealous of the new brother or new sister.
Right.
The teacher said, you should be excited. You're having a new brother or new sister.
Right.
And he said, I'm not excited because I don't know if the baby is mine or my brother's. Remember, mothers do it too. And not just over in Trinidad, Tobago. I heard of a boy here in Union sexually abused by his mother. Now he's a lot older and he gets very possessive and jealous and fights with his mom when his mom gets a boyfriend. Women do it too. That's what we got to understand. Sometimes there's a man pulling the strings, but other times it is not like that. There are sick men and sick women. There are nannies. I know of a woman, she was a nanny, teenage nanny, sexually abusing a boy. You can't trust anybody because it's the people closest to you. It's the people closest to you. And let's stop blaming the victim. Why didn't he say? Why didn't she say? Because of fear. False evidence appearing real. Fear is the reason why we do not speak up about what we're going through, because we are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid of. My stepfather never threatened me. He abused me in my sleep. There was no conversation, but I was afraid. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. It is not easy to talk about sex when it's such a taboo topic.
It is. Hey, today is just the beginning. Juanita Headley, attorney at law in New York City, international speaker, CEO at Changing Cases, author of the book Can You Keep a Secret? Juanita, we can go on and on. I'm hoping that today is not the last that we'll be joined by you. You will be gracing us with your presence. I'm hoping
hope so.
Today is not the last.
Please, I hope it's
Listen,
not.
it is much more than a plate full of information. And I'm hoping that especially parents who are listening, they can take the information that was disseminated and put it to proper use. Remember, we are beginning our discussions on child abuse awareness and all the issues that surrounds that particular discussion. Today is just the beginning. And remember, we got to say thank you to the Child Development Division within the Ministry of National Mobilization. And we got to say thanks to UNICEF and USAID as well. Anything that you would like to leave us with, Juanita?
Most definitely. A few things. The first one, if people would like to get a copy of my book, Can You Keep a Secret?, they can go to Games Book Center. The next thing too, every Thursday I have Zooms discussing this topic from 5 to 7:30 p.m. I have podcasts on Tuesday and Wednesday every week. I also do a program on Gem FM every Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. I want people to reach out to me to learn more about the topic. I say I hope I'll still be here because I've been here for 6 months and time is running out. I'm meant to leave on the 18th. So I'm praying for a miracle. I need a visa. I need sponsorship. I need a job. So if someone wants to hire me, please. I don't want to leave your island. Like, seriously, I love Canawan. I love your place. I don't want to go back to England with the snow and the rain. So please, guys, reach out to me if you'd like to sponsor me, if you would like to help me to stay in your country. It ain't cheap for a visa. But in all seriousness, though, I am here at least till the 18th. Prayerfully, I'll be here for longer. But I want people to reach out. My Facebook is Changing Cases, Changing CASES. My website, changingcases.org, changingcases.org. And then my WhatsApp number, it's 454-1693. 454-1693. I speak on this topic all around the world. This is the 38th country I've been to. This is my heart and my passion. This is what I want to do full time. I quit my paid job to be here and give this message for free. I love what I do. I'm available 7 days a week, whether that's remotely, via Zoom, or in person. Please reach out to me, 454-1693, changingcases.org, and Facebook, Changing CASES. Like I said, reach out to me. I'm here at least until the 18th. And one more thing, too, because I got a huge passion for the prison. I'm in love with the prison. In fact, on Christmas Day, I got left there for 2 hours. I got forgotten in prison, right? I'm in prison all the time. I love prison. Why? When I'm there, all I see is human beings with a tendency to rape, human beings with a tendency to murder, human beings with a tendency to have sex with kids. There's life and death in our words. When you call somebody a pedophile, that is all they can aspire to be. But if you call them a human being, there is the capacity to change. There's power in our words. And when I go to the prison, I'll tell you the truth. I've presented 4 times on this topic. They show me the most respect that I have ever got when I've been in a group of men. I did another presentation with a group of professional men, a lot of testosterone, jokes, laughing, etc. It was kind of annoying. Went to prison, respect. I have a dream of building bakeries around the world, hiring former prostitutes, former homeless people, and best of all, ex-convicts. I am in love with Canawan Island. My dream is to build my bakery in Canawan and hire your ex-convicts. You may not agree with my dream, but think about it. If I can hire him, he'll stop selling marijuana, stop selling his daughter for sex, and stop burglarizing your homes. So please support me so that I can support your people. 6 months I have given you free of charge. I want to stay longer. I need a visa. I need a sponsor. Even if you just sponsor me 25 EC dollars, I can extend my stay. But I want to work. So if you're hearing this and the Lord is calling you and saying, ring her, WhatsApp her.
Give her a call.
Give her your land so she can build the bakery. I'm open to it. 454-1693. Remember, I'm only here until the 18th, but I pray in Jesus' name that will change. Thank you for having
Juanita.
me.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us all this information. Thank you very much, Juanita. Let's say thank you as well to Sandra Augustus that was inside with us from the Child Development Division. We will continue this discussion right here on the X. Like I said, today is just the beginning. Once again, we say thank you to our friends down at the National Mobilization Ministry of National Mobilization. Remember, this program brought to you with the kind compliments of the Child Development Division within the Ministry of National Mobilization in collaboration with UNICEF and funded by USAID right here on the X. A whole lot of thank you messages coming in there, Juanita. A whole lot of them coming inside. Hey, keep it locked inside to the X. We will be back on a Wednesday morning right here.
Live from the Vigi Highway Fountain. This is a wake-up call on X104.3 FM. The best part of waking up. X104.3 FM in the morning.
Love more and win more with Digicel this Valentine's. Win Samsung smartphones, Spot